Iaquinta versus Dan Hooker takes place in the co-main event of UFC 243, Whittaker versus Adesanya this weekend. It's going to be a good fight and it's a great co-main event. People saying that this is like a bad co-main event. You don't understand. You just don't. This is a great fight. Iaquinta's star power has gone rapidly upwards since he went the distance with Khabib. And then ever since then, his star power's got even better because we're seeing Khabib dominate other guys. So his loss against Khabib by distance is looking way better now that we see what Khabib is doing to these other guys like Poirier. You know what I'm saying? Iaquinta's a beast. I do think he's going to lose to Dan Hooker. I had someone of the retarded persuasion in my live chat the other day when I said that I thought Dan Hooker was going to beat Iaquinta. And he said, oh, goes 5 rounds of Khabib, but Dan Hooker can beat him. Shake my head. Like there isn't different styles in MMA. Okay? That's the level of brain power these Khabib. Not even going to get into that right now, okay? We're going to talk about the fight. Dan Hooker, in my opinion, is going to win this one. He's going to blast Iaquinta up the middle with a knee in the 3rd round or the 2nd round. In the second half of the fight, I'm going for. I think it will be the 3rd round, but it could be the end of the 2nd. I feel like he's going to get Iaquinta. Okay? I feel like Iaquinta is one of these guys that really does benefit from having 5 rounds. And when you take that away from him, not good. You know, he's been on the right side of some split decisions. And when you really look at Iaquinta's record, yeah, there are some decent names, but I mean, you know, there's some decent names, but there aren't a lot of top contenders. And you can say the same for Dan Hooker as well. But I feel like Iaquinta's spot in the rankings is purely because he moved up, remember. People don't know this, but he moved up in the rankings for losing to Khabib. For taking a fight on short notice and going the distance with Khabib, he moved upwards in the rankings. That makes no sense. So I feel like Iaquinta's position in the rankings is a little bit wrong. I feel like he should be around the number 10 area. I think that's a better position for him. But he's a little bit higher up because he got a win over Kevin Lee, who he's a perfect style matchup for. If you know, Iaquinta's the counter wrestler. That's all he does. And if you give him 5 rounds, he's going to be able to take advantage of these guys that slow down like Kevin Lee does a little bit. Okay? If he had a full camp, who knows what would have happened in that Khabib fight. If he can do that on a day's notice against Khabib, who the fuck knows what would happen in a full camp. I do think Dan Hooker's going to get him. I think the hangman will strike again. I think he's going to catch him with a knee out the middle. And I say that because every time Dan Hooker fights these guys, shorter opponents that like to throw overhands and hooks, that like to bob and weave their way in like Iaquinta does, that's his style. That is his style. Dan Hooker blasts them with a knee. And the list goes on. Ross Pearson in Adelaide. Dan Hooker blasts him with a knee and KOs him in the 3rd round. Gilbert Burns. Short guy likes to bob and weave and throw hooks. Dan Hooker blasts him with a knee up the middle and then finishes him with a combination once he's already rocked. Other guy, Ross Pearson. I just named him. Jim Miller. There you go, Jim Miller. Another guy. Shorter guy for the division. Big guy for the division. Likes to bob and weave and throw hooks. Dan Hooker blasts a knee up the middle. I feel like this is a perfect style for Dan Hooker to win. I feel like the only guys that can really give Dan Hooker problems are the guys that like that range game and can play that range game with him. Like Edson Barboza chewing him up with leg kicks, chewing him up with body kicks. I feel like that's the only way you're going to beat Dan Hooker. And as much as I like Iaquinta, I just don't think he has it in him to do what Edson Barboza did to Dan Hooker. I don't think he does. I don't think he's going to be able to blast switch kicks that Dan Hooker's not going to see coming. I think Iaquinta's going to have to do what he has to do, which is getting on the inside, bob and weave, avoid shots, and then blast stuff over the top. And Dan Hooker loves that style. That's the style he's been whooping for a very long time. I don't like this matchup for Iaquinta. I'm a big Iaquinta fan. I feel like Dan Hooker's going to get this one. I thought James Vick was going to be a little bit of a problem for Dan Hooker, because it will be the first time Dan Hooker's really facing a guy that's taller than him. And I thought that was going to be a bad style matchup, because he can't utilise his knees. He showed that doesn't mean anything by KOing James Vick in the first round. And some of you may say, oh yeah, well it's Vick. Yeah, well Vick's the same guy who took Paul Felder to a close decision. So it's a good win. A really good win to KO him in the first round like that. I like Dan Hooker here. I like the fact that their whole camp is going to war together. I don't think Israel Adesanya is going to win. I do think Dan Hooker's going to win. I think he's going to just catch him with a knee in the third round. I don't see a way. I just don't see Iaquinta being able to adapt a style that's not going to lead him into that knee. Or lead him into the other shots of Dan Hooker. I just feel like this is a terrible matchmaking. Iaquinta sees this, I'm sure, as him facing a striker. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Iaquinta shooting for some takedowns. He has to worry there as well with the ground game of Dan Hooker. I like Iaquinta, I just don't see him winning this. I think this is a terrible matchup. You call a Kevin Lee trilogy, I'm going with Iaquinta all day. I think Iaquinta could beat Paul Felder. I think there's a lot of guys in the division right now Iaquinta can beat. Not Dan Hooker. The styles don't make sense. So we'll see. Hopefully I'm right on this one. Second half of the fight, I'm saying the third round. Iaquinta's losing, comes out desperate, bobbing and weaving, looking for an overhand, gets a knee blasted up the middle, and gets KO'd stiff. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Iaquinta took a lot of damage in the Cerrone fight, and I don't think anyone's talking about it. He got knocked down and dropped and rocked multiple times in that fight, and it was in May. And he's back already. I don't like that. And what did Cerrone cash him with? A front kick up the middle, while Iaquinta's trying to bob and weave. It's a recipe for disaster for Al. Big fan of the Raging Bull, but I think he's going to run into some issues. Like and subscribe. Click that button there. Dan Hooker by third round KO with a knee. Goodbye.